My name is Sean Fouts. I passed the bar exam on my first try this July. My circumstances are somewhat unique, or a lot unique, in that I originally graduated from law school in the year 2000, 10 years ago. At the time, I got a joint degree in public administration, a master's degree in public administration also, and I didn't want to pursue a degree or a career in law. And the career path I chose, I followed for the last 10 years. Recently, I decided that I'd want to consider a career in law, and I debated, thought about it, could I actually do it? Well, I did on my first try. I scored in the 91st percentile. And AmeriBar is the only study course I used. I used the self-help. I didn't go to any classes. I didn't use any other materials. I didn't borrow materials. I studied independently. Obviously, all of my classmates went to school 10 years ago. They're no longer studying for the bar. And AmeriBar gave me what I needed. I should also mention that not only did I graduate from law school 10 years ago, while I studied for the bar exam, I was working full-time. I'm also a family man. I have 5 children under the age of 8. In the self-study course, the only time I took off of work was one day a week in June and July, so approximately 7 Fridays I took off to study. Other than that, I studied Saturdays, evenings, and lunchtime. The AmeriBar gave me everything I needed to do. It was concise, simple. It had an easy plan to follow. I mean, it was a lot of hard work. I shouldn't say simple, but it gave me the tools, the framework, which to follow, which made me learn little chunks of it at a time, logically and clearly. I chose AmeriBar because, one, I needed to have a self-study course. I didn't have time to take any courses in person because I worked full-time. I have 5 children, like I said before, so I needed a self-help study course. I also wanted something economical. I was confident that I could have the discipline to do this, and when I went on the internet, I started to research the programs that exist, found AmeriBar, read some comments independent of AmeriBar's webpage of what people experienced, read some good comments. I also took the free NPRE study course, downloaded it, looked it over, seemed logical, read the outline, took some of the practice questions from the NPRE website, did well on that. So I thought if it was good, the rest of it was probably good, and I was right. The thing that impressed me the most about the AmeriBar system was probably 2 things. One, everything's clearly laid out. If you're self-disciplined, if you can hold yourself to a schedule, you will find the content you need logically laid out. It's not full of fluff. The second thing that impressed me, once I purchased it, the study tips that received at the very beginning of the program, AmeriBar seemed to have the same study philosophy that I had while I was in school. It's not necessarily how much time you put in. You do need to put a lot of time in, obviously, but you need to know how much time you have and use that time intelligently and to get the most out of the time you do have, and you'll do better than spending lots of time not doing what's necessary. And I think AmeriBar was focused on what is necessary to pass the exam, had great study tips, and the content itself. When I took the exam, that's what was in the exam, the content I studied. The starring system was helpful. As the study guides say, you can't ignore the things that aren't starred, but obviously some days you'll have more time to study than others, and if you have 15 minutes to steal on a subject, a lunch break or something, going through the starring system, the things that you know are most likely to be asked. Obviously, the way to pass any exam, the bar exam included, is to get the most points you possibly can. If you're an expert on the 75% of the things you know are going to be asked, that increases your likelihood of getting points. That doesn't mean the other things that aren't starred aren't important, but you absolutely, positively need to be perfect on the things that you know will be on the exam. So the starring system was important. I found the outlines to be easily readable. In the subject areas that I'm naturally more interested in, I found them enjoyable to read. In the subject areas that I'm not as naturally interested in, I found them to be what I needed to help me remember the law. I particularly have had trouble in commercial transactions. If it weren't for the AmeriBar outlines, I don't know if I ever would have gotten that through my head, and I did get it through my head and did well on that question. The outlines are in a logical format, like for example, in commercial transactions, again, a subject matter I don't particularly care for, or that I shouldn't say I don't care for, that I don't pick up as quickly as some of the others. At a certain point it clicked, and the outlines you could tell were logically laid out. And eventually, when I got to the point where it clicked, those outlines, I can remember the outlines being in my head during the exam. I had everything memorized in the same order that AmeriBar gave it to me and it was a logical way to lay it out. And when I finally understood it, like I said, that's exactly what was in my head, still in my head. I found the lectures very clear, very helpful, especially, like I said, at the beginning of the program, the lectures on how to study for the bar exam, how to answer questions in the bar exam. When you have those at the beginning and you're understanding that you're not only studying to learn the content, you are studying to pass the test. Those two things combined I thought were very helpful. The lectures weren't boring. The lecturers were clear, spoke well, slowly enough that you could take good notes, not too slowly that you fell asleep. I thought it was good. I would listen to the lectures first and then read the outlines, and as I was reading the outlines, some of it made more sense to me than it may have if I hadn't listened to the lectures. And it's just a memory thing too, to have an audio memory and a visual reading memory of the subject matter that I think helped during the exam. I found the study schedule to be helpful. I couldn't follow it to the T because working full time and having a large family. But what I did do is start earlier than the normal schedules that AmeriBar has in the front of the book. But I did follow the trajectory of the schedule, or the firing. I did follow the schedule the way it was laid out. I may have taken more days for some subjects than the schedule had, but I did find it helpful to at least give me an idea of how much time relative to each subject needed. For example, extra days for real property, and I found that to be very true. Extra days were needed. What I would tell a law student considering AmeriBar course review is, if you are self-disciplined, if you will follow a schedule, if you don't need someone to lay out every detail of the day for you, if you don't have to go to a class at a particular time in a particular place, if you can do it on your own, do it. You've learned this in law school. I took AmeriBar, like I said, 10 years after law school. This stuff is much fresher in your mind than mine. You were smart enough to pass law school, or you wouldn't be taking the bar exam. So you're probably smart enough and self-disciplined enough to do a self-study. And it can fit in your schedule. If it fit in my schedule, it can fit in anyone's schedule. You can study in the middle of the night, in the morning, afternoon, lunchtime, whenever. So I would say go for it. Why spend more money for a program that it's on someone else's schedule when you can spend less money for a program that's on your schedule? AmeriBar's customer service was great. I only needed to contact AmeriBar once for a technical question. I received a response. I think it was within the hour. I can't say for sure, but it was quick. It was quick. It was that day for sure. That no more than a few hours. I did purchase the program where you could turn in questions to be scored. I found that very helpful. Since I had no one else to study with, that did give me positive feedback that I was on the right track. And I think that if a student were not on the right track, that would also be useful as a critique in order to get your answers to the point they need to be. So I found the customer service quick and useful the time I needed it. The advantages of self-study bar review. My situation, it's all the advantage in the world. I couldn't possibly fit this into someone else's schedule. I work full time. I have 5 children. I volunteer. I'm part of a fraternal organization where I volunteer a good amount of time. I help with my children coaching sports. All the things that come with having 5 children. This had to be on my time without affecting the rest of my life too much. Obviously, if you're studying for a bar exam, it's going to affect your life. But the ability to do it when I had the time to do it in the places where I could find the time to do it meant all the difference. I couldn't have done it. I just couldn't have done it on someone else's time. Self-study court, and even someone not in my situation, I would think, like I said, if you're self-disciplined, which you should be if you made it through law school, self-study's the way to go. Was AmeriBar a good value for the money? I think so. I can't compare it to others as I haven't purchased the others. But like I said, I'm 10 years out of law school. I finished in the 91st percentile in the Ohio bar exam on my first try. I can't imagine that any other course would have gotten me any better. There were, of the 2.5 days worth of questioning on the bar exam, there were very, very few things that I didn't remember studying. And I'm sure a couple of those were my memory not remembering correctly that I did study it, and so, most of the obscure things probably weren't in any other course either. And like I said, those were very, very few. 98% of the things or more that I saw in that bar exam was in the AmeriBar study course. It was much cheaper than the main competitor. I overheard some of the other test takers during one of the breaks during the MBE complain that they didn't like the questions on the MBE because they were worded differently than the questions in the study course they were going through, which I understood by listening to the AmeriBar presentation, that some bar review courses made their own MBE questions, which seems strange to me. As I was taking the bar exam, the MBE questions were very familiar. It's exactly what I've been studying in the AmeriBar course. Obviously, they don't use the same exact questions, but you know the type of questions they're going to ask. You know how they word questions. It was very comfortable. If I knew the area of law, I got the question right. So I think it was a great value. Like I said, I went into the test confident that I knew it. I did know it, did well. So I don't know why I would pay more for the same thing.